Listen carefully, because most men misunderstand this completely. You think that if a woman truly values you, she will always say it clearly. You think importance is loud. You think it shows up in obvious confessions, dramatic messages, and constant reassurance. But human psychology rarely works that way, especially when it comes to women. Because when a woman begins to care deeply about a man, something subtle happens inside her mind. She doesn't always become louder. She often becomes quieter. She doesn't always become more obvious. She becomes more careful. And that's where most men get it wrong. They interpret silence as indifference. They interpret hesitation as lack of interest. They interpret emotional restraint as distance. But sometimes that restraint is the very proof that you matter more than you realize. When a woman sees a man as ordinary, she has nothing to protect. She speaks freely. She risks nothing. His opinion doesn't carry weight in her emotional world. But when you matter, everything changes. Your words start to matter. Your reactions start to matter. Even your silence starts to matter. Even your silence starts to matter. And suddenly, she begins filtering herself in ways you don't notice. She replays conversations in her head long after they're over. She wonders if she said too much or not enough. She analyzes your tone. She studies your reactions. She studies your reactions, not because she's weak, but because emotional investment has quietly entered the room. This is something many men fail to recognize. They look for loud signals while the real signals are happening beneath the surface. For example, watch how a woman behaves when she values a man's perception of her. She becomes more self-aware around him. Her posture shifts. Her words become more thoughtful. She doesn't just speak. She considers how it will land, not because she's pretending, but because your opinion has become emotionally significant. Another sign you often miss is emotional memory. When a woman doesn't care about a man, interactions disappear quickly from her mind. They don't linger. They don't echo. But when she cares, the smallest details stay with her. The way you encouraged her once, the moment you defended her, the time you listened without judgment. These moments become emotional anchors in her memory. And here's something even deeper that most men overlook. When a woman values a man deeply, she begins measuring other men against him, often unconsciously, not in obvious comparisons, but in subtle emotional reactions. Someone else might try to impress her, but it doesn't land the same way. Someone else might compliment her, but it doesn't carry the same emotional weight. Because once a man occupies a meaningful place in her psychological landscape, replacing that position becomes incredibly difficult. But here's the paradox. The more a woman values a man, the more careful she can become about revealing it. Why? Because emotional exposure carries risk. If she shows too much and the feeling isn't returned, she risks embarrassment. She risks rejection. She risks losing control of her emotional balance. So instead of dramatic declarations, she often expresses care in quieter ways. She supports you in moments when you doubt yourself. She listens when others don't. She defends you when your name enters a room you're not in. These are not loud signals, but they are powerful ones. And the men who truly understand female psychology know this. A woman's deepest investment rarely announces itself with noise. It reveals itself through attention, through memory, through subtle shifts in behavior that only the observant man notices. So if you want to understand whether you matter more to her than you realize, stop looking for grand confessions. Start paying attention to the quiet details, because the truth is, sometimes the strongest sign that a woman values you isn't what she says to you. It's what she protects when it comes to you. And often what she protects the most is the emotional space you occupy in her world. When a woman truly values a man, something subtle begins to change in the way she carries herself around him. Most men assume that when a woman cares deeply, she will become louder with her feelings, more expressive, more obvious. They expect dramatic declarations, constant attention, or endless reassurance. But real emotional investment in a woman often moves in the opposite direction. Instead of becoming louder, she becomes more careful. Carefulness is a psychological signal of importance. When someone has no emotional impact on us, we behave freely around them. We speak without filtering our words. We do not think twice about how we appear or how our actions might be interpreted. Their opinion simply doesn't hold enough weight to influence our behavior. But when a woman starts seeing a man as significant, his perception suddenly matters. His reactions carry emotional value. What he thinks of her, how he interprets her words, and how he responds to her presence begin to feel important. Because of that, she naturally becomes more aware of herself when she is around him. This awareness does not mean she is pretending or putting on a performance. In fact, it usually means the opposite. It means she wants to be understood correctly. She wants her words to land the right way. She wants to show the best, most genuine parts of herself without risking being misunderstood. You might notice that she pauses before responding sometimes, choosing her words more carefully than she would with others. She might laugh a little softer, speak a little more thoughtfully, or subtly adjust the way she presents herself. These changes are not signs of distance or disinterest. They are signs that your presence has become emotionally meaningful. Many men misread this shift completely. They interpret it as hesitation, confusion, or lack of attraction. They assume that if she really liked them, she would make everything obvious and effortless, but emotional depth rarely works like that. The more a person matters to us, the more we become aware of the emotional risks involved. For a woman, caring deeply introduces vulnerability. If she becomes too open too quickly and the feeling isn't returned, the emotional impact can be painful. So instead of revealing everything immediately, she often manages her emotions carefully. She observes, she listens, and she allows the connection to unfold gradually. This carefulness can also appear in the way she reacts to your opinions. A simple compliment from you may mean more to her than compliments from anyone else. A small criticism might stay in her mind longer than it normally would. She may remember your reactions, your tone, even the smallest details of how you respond to her. That level of attention is not random. It is a reflection of emotional importance. In many cases, the woman herself may not even consciously realize how much your presence influences her behavior. Emotional significance operates quietly in the background of the mind. It shapes reactions, thoughts, and decisions in subtle ways. So when a woman becomes more thoughtful, more measured, and more careful around you, it does not mean she feels less. Often it means she feels more. It means that your opinion has weight in her emotional world, and because of that, she is choosing her actions with greater intention. A woman's emotional investment often reveals itself in ways that are easy to overlook if you are only searching for obvious signs. Many men expect interest to show up through grand gestures, constant communication, or dramatic expressions of affection. But in reality, some of the strongest signals of emotional connection appear in the smallest details of attention. When a woman truly values someone, her mind begins to naturally focus on things about you that others would normally ignore. Attention is one of the clearest indicators of emotional significance. The human brain does not dedicate energy to things that feel unimportant. It filters information constantly, remembering what matters and discarding what does not. When a woman becomes emotionally invested in a man, this filter changes. Suddenly, details connected to him start to stand out and stay in her mind. She might remember the exact way he told a story weeks ago, or recall a small comment he made that most people in the room completely forgot. She may notice subtle changes in his mood, even when he is trying to hide them. A slight shift in his tone, a moment of silence, or a small sign of stress might catch her attention immediately. This level of observation is rarely forced. It happens naturally because the brain becomes tuned to someone who has gained emotional importance. Just like people instinctively pay closer attention to the things they care about most, a woman's awareness sharpens around the man who has started to matter in her inner world. You might notice that she brings up things you mentioned casually in the past. Perhaps you once talked about a challenge you were dealing with, and later she asks how it turned out. Maybe you briefly shared a personal goal, and weeks later she remembers it and asks if you're still working toward it. These moments can seem small on the surface, but they reveal something deeper happening beneath the interaction. What this shows is that your words did not simply pass through her mind and disappear. They stayed with her. They became part of her mental landscape. When someone remembers the details of your thoughts, your preferences, and your experiences, it means your presence has moved beyond casual interaction and into emotional relevance. Another powerful form of this attention is emotional awareness. When a woman cares about a man, she becomes more sensitive to his emotional state. She may notice when he is quieter than usual or when something seems to be weighing on his mind. Even if he says everything is fine, she might sense that something is different. This sensitivity is not about overanalyzing every action. It is about emotional attunement. When two people form a meaningful psychological connection, they begin picking up signals from each other that others would miss entirely. Many men overlook these quiet signals because they are expecting something louder. They look for obvious compliments, clear confessions, or dramatic efforts to impress them. Meanwhile, the real evidence of emotional investment is happening in the background through consistent, thoughtful attention. 5. When someone remembers the small things about you, notices the subtle shifts in your mood, and brings up details you barely thought were important, it reveals something powerful. It means your presence has become meaningful enough for her mind to hold on to the pieces of you that most people never even see. When a woman begins to value a man deeply, something subtle but powerful starts to happen within her internal world. His opinion slowly begins to carry emotional weight, and over time it can influence the way she sees herself. This does not mean she loses her independence or her sense of identity. Instead, it means that someone she respects and values has entered the space where her self-perception is shaped. Every person has certain voices that matter more than others. Most opinions from strangers pass through our minds without leaving any lasting effect. Compliments feel pleasant for a moment, criticism fades quickly, and life continues unchanged. But when the opinion comes from someone who has gained emotional importance, it lands differently. It becomes something the mind pays attention to and remembers. For a woman who cares deeply about a man, his perception of her begins to feel meaningful. If he notices something positive about her character, it can stay with her longer than praise from anyone else. A simple acknowledgement from him may carry more emotional value than 10 compliments from others. This is because the brain naturally prioritizes feedback from people whose approval matters. Over time, this can influence how she evaluates herself. If he recognizes her strength, her intelligence, or her kindness, those reflections may reinforce the way she views those qualities within herself. His words can act like a mirror that highlights parts of her identity she may not always notice on her own. This dynamic becomes even clearer in moments of encouragement. When a woman hears belief and support from a man she respects, it can strengthen her confidence in ways that feel deeply motivating. Sometimes a single sentence of genuine encouragement from the right person can stay in someone's mind for years. The reason is simple. Emotional significance amplifies the impact of words. The same psychological principle applies to criticism as well. When feedback comes from someone who does not matter emotionally, it is easy to dismiss. But when it comes from someone who holds a meaningful place in her life, it can lead to reflection. She may think more carefully about what was said, wondering whether there is truth in it or whether she needs to grow in some area. This does not mean she blindly accepts everything he says. Healthy emotional investment does not erase personal judgment. Instead, it simply means his perspective has entered the circle of voices that influence how she interprets herself and her actions. You may also notice subtle behavioral shifts that reflect this influence. A woman who values a man's opinion might put extra thought into how she communicates with him. She may want to show the best version of herself when he is around, not because she is pretending to be someone else, but because his perception matters enough for her to care about consciously realize the extent of this influence. Emotional importance often operates quietly beneath awareness. She simply feels that his recognition, his respect, and his understanding carry a deeper meaning than most other interactions in her life. When someone's opinion begins shaping the way another person views themselves, it is rarely a small thing. It means that person has moved beyond casual interaction and has entered a space of genuine emotional significance where words, reactions, and perceptions begin to echo far longer than they normally would. When a woman values a man deeply, one of the most misunderstood behaviors that can appear is emotional restraint. Many people assume that strong feelings should automatically lead to open expression. They believe that if someone truly cares, they will immediately reveal everything they feel without hesitation. But in reality, deep emotional investment often makes a person more cautious, not less. The reason is simple. The more someone matters to us, the more vulnerable we become around them. Emotional exposure carries risk. When a woman begins to develop real feelings for a man, she becomes aware, sometimes consciously, sometimes subconsciously, that revealing those feelings places her in a delicate position. If the connection is not mutual, the possibility of rejection can feel deeply personal. Because of this, many women instinctively guard their emotions instead of displaying them openly. This does not mean the feelings are weak or uncertain. In many cases, it means the feelings are strong enough that she wants to protect them. Emotional self-protection is a natural psychological response when something valuable is involved. When a person does not care very much, they have nothing to lose. They can flirt casually, express interest freely, or move on quickly if the situation changes. Their emotional world remains stable regardless of the outcome. But when real attachment begins to form, the situation becomes different. The connection now carries emotional weight, and the possibility of losing it becomes something the mind tries to avoid. This is why a woman who values a man may take more time before revealing her true level of interest. She might observe his behavior, pay attention to how he treats her, and quietly look for signs that the feeling might be mutual. Instead of making bold declarations, she may choose to move carefully and protect her emotional balance. Sometimes this guarded behavior can be misunderstood as uncertainty or lack of interest. A man might think that if she truly liked him, she would show it clearly and directly. But emotional caution often grows out of the opposite reality. The more important someone becomes, the more thoughtful a person becomes about how much of their inner world they reveal. Guarding feelings can also appear through subtle emotional control. She might avoid saying things that would expose how much she cares. She may hold back certain compliments, hide moments of jealousy, or pretend that something does not affect her as much as it actually does. These actions are not about manipulation. They are usually about protecting dignity and emotional stability until she feels safe enough to be more open. Trust plays a crucial role in this process. When a woman begins to believe that a man respects her feelings and values her vulnerability, the protective barrier slowly lowers. As emotional safety increases, she becomes more comfortable revealing what she truly feels. The guarded energy fades because the fear of being misunderstood or rejected becomes smaller. Until that sense of safety develops, however, emotional protection remains a natural response. The mind instinctively protects what feels important. When a woman guards her feelings, it often reflects that the connection has become meaningful enough to require careful handling. Her silence, her restraint, and her measured reactions are not signs that the feelings are absent. In many cases, they are signs that those feelings have grown strong enough to matter. Many people believe that romantic interest should always appear in clear, dramatic ways. They expect obvious confessions, constant compliments, or bold attempts to impress. Because of this expectation, men often look for loud signals to determine whether a woman is interested in them. But female psychology often expresses attraction and emotional investment in much quieter ways. When a woman truly cares about someone, her feelings frequently reveal themselves through behavior rather than direct words. These behaviors are subtle, consistent, A woman who values a man often pays close attention to him in ways that are not immediately obvious. She might notice his mood changes before others do. She may remember things he mentioned in passing weeks ago. Small details about his preferences, struggles, or goals stay in her memory. This level of awareness does not come from obligation. It comes from genuine interest. Another quiet behavior appears in the way she makes space for him in her life. Even when she has many responsibilities or people around her, she finds small ways to remain connected. This could be as simple as checking in during a busy day, responding thoughtfully to something he shares, or showing up emotionally when he needs support. These actions might seem ordinary, but they reveal a deeper level of care. Support is another powerful signal that often goes unnoticed. When a woman cares about a man, she tends to encourage his progress and believe in his potential. She may remind him of his strengths when he doubts himself. She might listen patiently when he talks about problems or ambitions. These supportive behaviors show emotional investment because they require attention, empathy, and energy. Quiet signs can also appear in moments when she defends or respects him in situations where he is not present. If someone speaks negatively about him, she may feel the urge to clarify misunderstandings or protect his reputation. This protective instinct shows that his image matters to her even when he is not there to witness the interaction. Body language and emotional reactions can also reveal interest more clearly than words. A woman might naturally turn her attention toward him in conversations, maintain comfortable eye contact, or show subtle excitement when he appears unexpectedly. These reactions often happen automatically because the mind responds instinctively to people who hold emotional significance. The reason these signals remain quiet is because deep feelings often grow gradually instead of announcing dissent. Selves loudly from the beginning, they build through repeated moments of connection and shared understanding. Each small action becomes part of a larger pattern that reflects genuine interest. Many men miss these signs because they expect attraction to be dramatic. They assume that if a woman truly likes them, she will say it directly or behave in ways that are impossible to misinterpret. But emotional expression is not always that simple. Some of the most meaningful signals appear through consistent behavior rather than words. When someone repeatedly shows attention, remembers details, offers support, and maintains emotional presence, those actions carry real meaning. They reveal that a connection exists beneath the surface. Quiet behaviors may not create dramatic moments, but they often tell the most honest story about how someone truly feels.